Mark Turner arrived in Montreal at the start of winter, pulling a suitcase across icy sidewalks while his breath rose like smoke. The cold hit him instantly, sharp and dry. He had taken a new job at a small tech company and needed a cheap place fast, which is how he ended up renting a third-floor apartment in an old brick building on Saint Laurent. The building looked worn but harmless. Faded red bricks, narrow staircases, old fire escapes clinging to the outside like ribs. The landlord, Mr. Bouchard, was an older man with a flat voice and tired eyes. He handed Mark the keys as if the metal burned his fingers. "Apartment 302, he said. "Try to keep the heat low. The wiring is old." He didn't smile. He barely blinked. Inside, the apartment was small but workable. A long hallway led from the door to the living room. The floorboards creaked. The walls were slightly yellowed. There was a faint smell of coal dust, the kind that hides in corners no one touches. Still, Mark was tired and happy to finally have a place. He set down his luggage, turned on the lights, and watched as the bulbs flickered twice before stabilizing. The hallway stayed dim even with every light on. It felt like the shadows had decided they weren't going anywhere. He ignored it. He unpacked. He cooked noodles. He set up his laptop. Then around midnight he heard something. A single footstep. Then another, soft and slow, coming from the hallway. He paused his video and listened. He waited. Another step. It was a steady rhythm, like someone walking without trying to hide it. The sound came closer inch by inch until it stopped right outside his bedroom. Mark's heartbeat grew louder than the footsteps had been. He opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the air felt different, charged, cold, like someone had just passed through. He stood there for a moment, unsure if he was exhausted or imagining things. Finally, he shut the door, crawled into bed, and told himself it was nothing. But he didn't sleep for a long time. The next few nights were worse. Every night between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m., footsteps echoed through the hallway. Sometimes they stopped at his door. Sometimes they walked past it. Sometimes they paused at the front door as if someone was trying to come in. During the day, everything was normal. But at night, the apartment turned into something else. The hallway seemed longer. The shadows felt heavier. The temperature dropped 5 or 6 degrees without explanation. One night, Mark woke up because the bedroom door creaked open. Slow, long, loud. He sat up instantly. His breath came out in small clouds even though the heater was on. The hallway was pitch black. He reached for his phone and turned on the flashlight. At the far end of the hallway stood a figure. Tall, still, facing him. He couldn't see its face, only the shape of long arms and a crooked posture, like its spine bent the wrong way. The phone light flickered just once. When it stabilized, the figure was closer. Mark slammed the bedroom door and pressed his back against it. He heard nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. No movement. That silence felt worse than the footsteps. When the sky began to turn blue, he finally opened the door. Nothing was there. But he noticed something else. The hallway light switch was flipped down. He had turned it on before bed. He was sure of it. He stood there staring at the switch, feeling cold spreading through his chest. By morning, he walked downstairs and knocked on the landlord's door. Something in him needed to hear a normal explanation. Mr. Bouchard opened the door halfway. His face looked stiff, like he hated conversations. "There are noises at night," Mark said. "Footsteps. Doors moving." The landlord lowered his eyes. "Old buildings make sounds," he muttered. "That wasn't the building," Mark said. "Someone was in my hallway." The landlord hesitated. His jaw tightened. Then he said something that made the air feel even colder. "Keep your door locked at night, and don't wander the hallway." He closed the door before Mark could ask anything else. That night, Mark kept the lights on. It didn't help. 2 days later, as Mark stepped out to buy groceries, someone called his name. "Hey, Mark, right?" He turned and saw a young woman standing in the doorway across the hall. She wore a thick sweater and had dark circles under her eyes. She offered a polite smile. "I'm Amira, apartment 304. Mark nodded. "Nice to meet you." "You've been hearing things," she said quietly. His chest tightened. "How do you know?" "Everyone who lives on this floor hears something eventually." Her expression changed, like she was debating whether to say more. Then she stepped back and motioned for him to follow. Inside her apartment, the hallway lights were turned off, and a heavy curtain hung across the entrance to her own hallway. "I don't use it anymore," she said. She sat on the couch and explained the building's past. In the 1970s, the third floor had been rented to long-term tenants. One of them was a man named Lucien Caron, who lived alone in Mark's apartment. He was quiet and kept to himself. Neighbors heard him pacing constantly, sometimes for hours at night. One winter, he stopped leaving his apartment. He shut himself inside for weeks. Tenants heard talking, crying, and loud thuds. Then it all went silent. He was never seen again. When maintenance forced the door open, the apartment was empty. No body, no bags packed, nothing missing. But the pacing didn't stop. Tenants complained about footsteps in the hallway, whispers, doors opening, appliances switching on by themselves. The landlord never told new tenants the story. Third-floor residents moved in and out quickly. "He doesn't want the place empty," Amira said softly. Mark felt something twist inside him. "You mean the landlord?" "No," she said. "Lucien." That night, Mark returned to his apartment feeling a new kind of fear. The hallway felt different now that he knew the story, like someone owned the space long before him. As he walked toward his bedroom, the lights flickered. Just once, but long enough for the hallway to go dark. Then he heard whispering, very close to his ear. He turned sharply, but nothing was behind him. He slept with his back against the wall. Things escalated fast. The next night, around 2:50 a.m., Mark heard the kitchen faucet turn on. Water splashing. Steady. Strong. He walked out slowly, heart racing. The kitchen light flicked on by itself as he stepped in. The faucet stopped. The fridge door swung open. He felt something brush past him, cold, thin, like a person walking too close. He backed into the living room. The air was freezing. Suddenly, the hallway lights shut off, plunging the apartment into darkness. Then, in the pitch black, he heard footsteps starting from the far end of the hallway, slow, steady, one after the other, coming toward him. He backed into his bedroom and shut the door. He reached for the light switch. It didn't work. The room stayed dark. His phone vibrated. He grabbed it quickly. A notification popped up. Unknown note saved to files. His hands trembled as he opened it. There were 2 typed words. "Hello, Mark." He dropped the phone. It hit the floor hard. Something tapped on the bedroom door. A single knock. Then 2. Then 3, slow, deliberate, spaced out. He didn't move. The doorknob turned just a little. And then, a sheet of old yellow paper slid under the door. He picked it up with shaking hands. The handwriting was messy and old, written in faded ink. "I never left." Mark felt his skin crawl. His throat tightened. He couldn't breathe properly. At 6 a.m., as soon as the sun came up, he called a moving company. They couldn't come until morning the next day. He would have to survive one more night. He tried staying out of the apartment, walking around town for hours, eating dinner at a cafe even though he wasn't hungry. But eventually he had to return. The moment he unlocked the door, the air inside felt wrong, thick, heavy, like the apartment knew he was leaving. He packed a backpack with essentials and sat on the couch waiting for sunrise. But sleep hit him hard. He closed his eyes for a moment. Only a moment. Then everything went dark. He woke up in pitch black. His phone was dead. His laptop was off. The heater wasn't running. He checked the time on his watch. 3:01 a.m. The cold stung his skin. Then he heard breathing. Not from the hallway. Inside the room. Slow, deep, too close. Mark froze. His eyes adjusted to the dark little by little. There was a figure standing near the doorway. The familiar tall shape. Crooked shoulders. Bent posture. The figure took one slow step toward him. "Mark," a voice whispered, thin, scraping like someone speaking with broken vocal cords. The figure stepped closer. Now Mark could see more. A sunken face, colorless skin, hollow eyes that didn't blink, a jaw hanging too low as if unhinged. Lucien, the missing tenant, the man who never left. "You took my room," the voice rasped. Mark tried to stand, but the air felt heavy, pressing down on him like a weight. His chest tightened. His vision blurred. The shadow stepped closer. Its cold hand touched Mark's shoulder. "I stayed," Lucien whispered. "Now you stay." Mark felt his legs give out. He collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. His body shook uncontrollably. Darkness crept in from the edges of his vision. The last thing he saw was Lucien leaning over him, watching him quietly. Then everything went black. 48 hours later, Mark woke up in a hospital bed. A nurse stood beside him, relieved to see him opening his eyes. She explained that a neighbor had called emergency services after hearing a loud crash from apartment 302. It was Amira. She visited him shortly after. Her face was pale. "You were on the floor," she said softly, barely breathing, eyes open like you were staring at something. Mark didn't tell her what he saw. He could barely think about it without shaking. He moved out that afternoon. He didn't pack anything. He didn't return the keys. He didn't look back at the building. Mark moved to another part of the city, but he never slept properly again. Every few nights he woke up to the same sound. Footsteps. Slow. Steady. Approaching. Sometimes they stop at his bedroom door. Sometimes he hears a whisper. I stayed.